Story 1. Live in Tampa, Zone Alpha. My husband and I evacuated out of state with our dogs and important items. I parked my car at my friend's parking garage on the 6th floor to avoid flooding, and we drove my husband's car out. We left around 4:30 a.m. on Tuesday, so there was no extensive traffic. There were some pockets of slowdown, but no real gridlock. Luckily, I am glad we are safe, but I am sick to my stomach over what is going to happen to our community. Story 2. I am looking at EarthCam in Naples, Florida, and there are people surfing. Story 3. My mother-in-law evacuated on Monday. She was not going to wait until the last minute. She made sure the breakers were off, water and gas were off, and everything was unplugged from the outlets. She moved all her valuables to the 2nd floor. She is also one of the few in her neighborhood who has flood insurance. She is hoping for the best. She took pictures of everything just in case for insurance purposes. She drove here to Kansas because she did not want to risk her car getting flooded. She did the right thing in my opinion. I hope others do the same. Story 4. South Tampa, Florida checking in. I lost most everything, including my car, from Hurricane Helene. I stayed in my apartment until Monday. I am in evacuation zone Alpha, which means mandatory evacuation. I took everything I had left and what could fit in my car. I had to leave some things behind. My cat and I are at a hotel, hopefully safe. I am not entirely sure what or where my next move is. It is a scary, confusing, and exhausting time. Story 5. Interstates were bumper to bumper northbound all day Monday and Tuesday. They opened up the shoulders and, in some cases, converted southbound lanes into extra northbound lanes. I left Tampa for Orlando late Tuesday night, and Interstate 4 was pretty clear by then. Gas is hard to find in some isolated areas, but there is plenty on the evacuation routes, just long lines at the pumps. Most people are complying with the evacuation orders. It has been slow but orderly. It took my parents 10 hours to get to South Carolina, which is usually a 5-hour drive. There are just a lot of people to move. I will answer questions here instead of replying individually. Evacuation taking only twice as long as normal traffic is actually really good. Yes, Orlando is also in the path, but it is less prone to flash flooding here, and I have a generator which I do not have at home. My parents have a recreational vehicle, so they evacuated out of state with that yesterday morning, and I am staying at their place. I should be fine here. The biggest worry is tornadoes rolling through this afternoon, but there is really no dodging those anyway. I do not know anyone who thinks the government is making the hurricanes, but I do not really associate with people like that. It seems like most people in the Tampa area are taking it seriously and acted early to evacuate appropriately. Helene was a decent warning shot for us with record storm surge. They are saying this one will likely have a bigger storm surge. We are still completely saturated, and they are predicting up to 18 inches of rainfall, so flash flooding is a big concern on top of storm surge, which is why I left to go inland even though I am not in an evacuation zone. Story 6. St. Petersburg resident here. Honestly, the evacuation was not horrible. I ended up going to Orlando, still in the path of the storm, but it should be much less intense. The worst part of all of this is the dread. There is such heavy grief and sadness in St. Petersburg, and it was really hard to leave knowing I might be coming back to a disaster. I might come back and find my whole home and all my things are gone. I am glad I will be safe and physically sound, but I am already mourning the city that I love so much and all the beautiful people that live there. It is incredibly endearing to see so much support and love being shared in these comments. The Tampa Bay community is so unbelievably special, as many of you are attesting to. If there is one silver lining in this, it is knowing that we are truly in this together and will rebuild together to restore the shared place we love. Story 7. My aunt and uncle were planning to stay in Venice to support some neighbors who could not leave. That has changed, and they are gathering those neighbors and pets and going to our empty seasonal condominium a ways inland. They cannot reach the property manager to get the key, but my uncle is a retired firefighter, and I am confident in his ability to get in. I told him I will replace the door frame if I have to. Story 8. Thank you for my first award and all the votes. My family and I are safe with no damages or issues. We lost power for 10 hours but had no other problems. It rained for 24 hours straight, and heavy gusts of wind rattled our windows all night. I'm in Southwest Florida but inland, outside the evacuation zone, about 100 feet above sea level. My area is safe enough that we have shelters here for some evacuees, so we are at home prepared to shelter in place. Many people unfamiliar with Florida think everyone in the forecast cone needs to evacuate, but that is not the case. Evacuation zones exist for a reason, so high-risk areas can evacuate in time and avoid competing with millions of people from low-risk areas. Many people are also unfamiliar with our topography. Every part of Florida does not have the same types of risks. Many of my friends live in evacuation zones A and B and already evacuated between yesterday and today. Traffic was bad, with 10-hour drives due to gridlock, gas shortages, and hotels fully booked everywhere. Right now, there is an eerie calm as we wait. I have experienced several hurricanes before, and this is the first time I am genuinely concerned. Story 9. Mom is close to the path. She is hunkered down with the dog. All the windows are hurricane rated. There is a new roof built to the latest code, and a whole house generator with a buried propane tank to power it. She is outside the mandatory evacuation zone, and the local shelter is about 300 yards away in a straight line. She is also near the highest point in the county. Fingers crossed. Story 10. Sarasota checking in here. It was not too terrible getting out. I am in Zone Alpha and just went to a friend's place inland. This was before it became a direct hit for Sarasota. Anyway, I live on a barrier island 10 feet above sea level. I am fully prepared for my house to be entirely underwater after this. Story 11. Having never lived in an area affected by these types of natural disaster events, how long in advance are people aware of the incoming danger? Have people known about this for more than a week? I imagine the panic shopping for supplies must be nerve-wracking or trying to ensure a safe exit from the path. Story 12. My dad and stepfamily are near Port Charlotte. They planned to ride it out when the storm was headed for Tampa. They saw the shift south yesterday, but they were not in an evacuation zone, so they decided to wait it out. Late last night, they finally received an alert that their zone needs to evacuate. There is no gas available anywhere, and the only shelters they can reach are also technically in the same zone where they live. They should have evacuated days ago when my brother and I were urging them to. Now they are in a difficult situation. They are completely boarded up and finally bought flotation devices after I begged them to. They are about 15 feet above sea level, so it is cutting it really close whether the storm surge will reach them. Story 13. This one feels very different. I'm inland near Orlando, so my experience has been more people heading this way. Resources are limited. No gas, shelves empty. It's pretty bad. The worst part is the information train. It's hard to differentiate information. This storm is moving quickly and has yet to weaken. It would be really nice for this storm to slow down. This storm is very scary. You can feel it. I pray for the West Coast and everyone in Milton's path. Let us all hope for this storm to weaken as expected. Stay safe, everyone, and listen to yourself and the official messaging. Do not play games with this. A Category 5, Category 4, or Category 3 hurricane is no joke. A Category 1 hurricane can also be very serious. Story 14. My in-laws left for Florida today from New York. My mother-in-law is too tired to argue anymore, and my father-in-law just knows better. I am sure that will be a fun drive. Story 15. I'm located in the Tampa Bay area, 6 miles from the coast. Here is my take. They evacuate by flood zones and type of residence here. If you are in zones A or B, you are in a low-lying coastal area with under 10 feet of sea level elevation and are under mandatory evacuation. If you are in Zone C in some places, it is mandatory. Any mobile homes or trailer parks are under mandatory notice to evacuate, and some residents are not leaving. Police are going door to door. I'm in Zone C in Pasco County, and evacuation is voluntary here. We are currently just outside the cone, slightly to the north. The track moved north all night after initially moving south, so we could be back in the cone at any time. We are not leaving, but my wife knows she can leave at any time if she wants, and I will watch things here. typical preparations are underway. Moving cars closer to the house, boarding up windows, and bringing loose items indoors so they do not fly away. Getting fuel and food over the last week was difficult, and I have been here a long time. Because of Hurricane Helene, you cannot buy empty gas cans, garbage cans, or garbage bags in my area. We are still recovering from a major storm, and resources have not yet been replenished enough to prepare fully. There is no wood available. It seems like my whole street is staying, and everyone is grilling and walking around aimlessly. No stores are open today, so no one is working. It is actually kind of a nice day outside when it is not raining. Calm before the storm. Story 16. My father-in-law was visiting friends near Fort Myers. He couldn't get a flight home, so he had to rent a car. Luckily, he found one. It took him over 24 hours to get back to Ohio, and he didn't stop to sleep. He drove straight through. It's usually a 16 to 17-hour drive from where he lives in Ohio to Tampa. He said the traffic was insane. Gas stations had lines wrapped around the block. Many places were running out of gas. I'm beyond thankful he's home and safe. For those who will be affected by this, my heart goes out to you. Stay safe. Story 17. My mother in Fort Myers chose not to evacuate, and now she is calling me with anxious updates. I don't even live in Florida, and my heart has been in my throat all day. She said she did not evacuate because she was worried about losing gasoline while on the roads and getting stuck there. Her yard is flooded, and she is expected to lose power later today. Story 18. Do people who live in those wealthy high-rises right next to the ocean leave? What happens to those buildings if there are massive storm surges? Story 19. Currently sheltering in place at my grandmother's house in Clearwater, Florida. I tried every tactic to get my parents and grandmother to leave. If I had left them here on their own and something bad happened, they would not be able to take care of themselves. I am risking my life and hoping that we all stay safe. We have everything boarded up, the water is frozen, and every jar and pot in the house is full. Fingers crossed. Story 20. I am someone who did not prepare. So far, it has not started raining. There is a mandatory evacuation near my place, so we might be next. I do not know. I will update if anyone cares. Story 21. Is it possible for people to evacuate south to Miami and avoid the storm? Story 22. I'm about an hour from St. Mary's, but I haven't seen anyone planning to evacuate, despite gas stations being packed. When I was last at the store, necessities such as water and canned food were almost gone. However, I am not really in an evacuation zone. We could lose power, but I expect my area will be hit hard with rain and wind. I hope and pray everyone stays safe during the storm and can get out in time. Story 23. As an Australian, this is absolutely astounding to read. Many people are staying home with a strong chance of danger from the storm Milton. Please do your best to stay safe. Is there anywhere to view the storm or uploaded pictures and videos as it progresses? Is the estimate of Milton hitting at about 2 p.m. still accurate? Story 24. Central Florida is not really evacuating, just going 30 minutes out to a relative's house. Everything is already flooding, and the few stores we have are empty, hoping the old trailer home we live in does not get destroyed. Story 25. I live in Gainesville, and we are hunkering down. There is no evacuation order, but we will be affected by part of the hurricane. The local grocery stores were selling fish and expensive meats at 75% off because they expect the food to spoil due to power outages. We have a charcoal grill, so we will be eating well even if the power goes out. This is the silver lining I am genuinely excited about. Story 26. I have an uncle with mental disorders. I do not know which ones, as he has never been tested, but there is something wrong. He is refusing to leave his recreational vehicle in Melbourne. I told my mother to make her peace with him before this week. Story 27. I live in northern Saskatchewan, Canada. We had a news story about people from our city who flew there and will not leave. They said they and others plan to stay in their hotels. I thought that was extremely selfish. I would think the hotel would need staff available to stay with them, or would they pay someone to stay with the guests? Story 28. My family and I have been at Disney World since Saturday. Everything was business as usual there, aside from some rainy moments. We managed to change our flights easily and departed yesterday evening at about 8 p.m. I was surprised to hear from many other resort guests that they were just planning to ride out the storm. People and their Disney hopes and dreams cannot be squashed by a historical hurricane, evidently. Wild. Story 29. I left Tampa Monday morning with my roommate and drove to my parents in South Carolina. Took 3 hours longer, so it was not too bad considering the situation and the traffic. When I was watching the weather and looking at the patterns, they kept saying it was going to slow down and not be as strong. I told my roommate that was unlikely. It would get stronger. We left the next morning. It reached a Category 4 overnight and a Category 5 while we were on the road. We kept seeing the weather station say it would die out, but it looks like I was right, unfortunately. Story 30. For my fellow hurricane refugees, I have only one recommendation for you. Always have cash. Story 31. I left the St. Petersburg area early yesterday around 8 o'clock in the morning. I do not know anyone in Florida with whom I could stay, so I managed to get a hotel room out of the path of the hurricane. However, I had to drive to the border of Alabama and Georgia. What should have been a 6.5-hour drive took me 11 hours, but I was also driving a Tesla. I had to stop twice to charge, even though I started with a full battery. Traffic was bumper to bumper near every major city, and shoulders were open until I got to Georgia. However, I figured out a different route and cut about an hour off my drive time by ignoring what Google said. Story 32. I've lived in Florida for most of my life and been through my fair share of hurricanes, but I have never been as scared as I have been for this one, especially after all the damage from Hurricane Helene. My partner, dog, and I evacuated from St. Petersburg to Gainesville yesterday afternoon. There was a lot of traffic, but we took some back roads, and they opened up the shoulder on the highway, Interstate 75 North, which helped with traffic. Our neighborhood in St. Petersburg floods badly when it rains, and I'm very worried about our house since we are first-time homeowners. Most of my family is in Bradenton and Sarasota, and I'm worried about them as well, but none of them are in major flood zones and should be safe. I'm stressed about finances because I won't be able to work this week, and I'm sure we'll have damages to the house. I feel fortunate because we have it much better than many others. My heart is hurting for what's going to happen to Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota, as these communities are where I call home. Story 33. Hoping everyone has a safe place if they were able to evacuate. If they were unable to for whatever reason, may this storm pass quickly and cause as little harm as possible. I am in Central Florida, so the winds are wild right now. Story 34. I'm in Miami. We are on storm alert. Many schools and businesses are closed today and tomorrow, Thursday. At the university where I work, we were given the option to come in or work from home. As of this writing, the morning until midday has been a little cloudy but extremely sunny with barely any humidity. Feels like a normal day. I have seen that last night and this morning, the interstates were packed with people heading south to evade the hurricane. A coworker of mine who lives here in Miami but owns property north of Tampa says he will fly in on the weekend to see the damage and is staying here. All in all, both at my parents' house and my house, we are anticipating bad weather and floods, but nothing too severe as the hurricane is still a little far away. As a Miami native, I'm not scared, just a little more alert than usual. I haven't seen a hurricane this big in a number of years. My best advice to anyone is to be prepared. In some areas, nothing might happen, but being prepared is essential. Be helpful to your neighbors. You never know who might need help. Story 35. Random question. If you were evacuating by car, could you go to the animal shelter and ask to take animals with you? Not to keep, but to help evacuate them as well, like a foster situation. I feel so sorry for the animals and their carers who can't do anything but hope. Story 36. I am in East Central Florida. We are taking sensible precautions, but I am on the very northern edge of the cone, so I am more worried about flooding than wind damage. I think we should be fine and am just hoping the power stays on. Story 37. I could not evacuate. My flight out was canceled. and there was not enough fuel for me to safely leave the affected area. Story 38. My family in Tampa tried but couldn't evacuate. They left at 5 a.m. yesterday and spent 5 hours driving 2 miles before turning around. The big question is why the state police hasn't opened all lanes in some areas. State police have shut down all rest stops because they are full. My family realized they couldn't make it to Georgia, so they decided to stay at a rest stop, but there was no room. Highway 75 is nearly impassable. My grandmother said she saw people fighting outside their cars in the bumper-to-bumper traffic as people tried to cut in. She said 2 men were screaming at each other with guns in hand. I am waiting to see the public reaction videos any day now. The situation is bad. My other cousin in Bradenton decided not to evacuate. He said police came to his door twice to urge him to leave, but he is staying put. I told him his house will likely flood since a canal is behind it. He and everyone else keep saying, "I've done this before. I've survived all these hurricanes. No, this one is bad and different, and there is another one behind it." They are assuring me they are at a safe elevation and that their neighborhood has good drainage and sewers. Do they not realize that Florida must pump all sewage because the whole state is basically flat? It does not matter if you have good drainage. Once the water rises high enough with nowhere to drain, the denial is strong. That is the issue. People do not believe things are bad if they have not experienced them at their worst. Story 39. I can't believe the number of people I have seen and heard who evacuated to Miami. Miami floods on a sunny Tuesday. Backing yourself into a corner does not make sense to me. If you have not left yet and are still thinking about Miami, do not do it. They are getting literal tornadoes right now. Story 40. I am still in North Tampa. I am staying for the storm, obviously. It is just starting to pick up now. It has been raining all day, but now I can hear the wind blowing from inside. I will keep you posted. Story 41. I feel like crying. I evacuated to Tallahassee, but I live in the Ellenton Parish area, and I am pretty sure I am going to lose my house. The storm will go right over that area if the track continues. Story 42. I got stuck in Minnesota. We do not live in an evacuation area, but my sister is with my son, and they decided to visit family in Alabama. A 7-hour drive took 12.5 hours. There was no gas available along the route. There were lines at fast food restaurants and stores. Story 43. Please read before you continue to comment. You are an idiot for staying. This is a broad question and perpetuates the misconception that the entire state of Florida should evacuate. I have been getting a lot of criticism for living in the greater Tampa Bay area and staying for this hurricane, and I am tired of it. I am outside of the evacuation zone and am staying home. Evacuees are not being told to leave the state. In fact, official orders state, consider evacuating tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. The evacuation is to avoid storm surge flooding, not the entire hurricane. There is no gas, traffic is terrible, and all hotels and Airbnb accommodations are booked. There are hundreds of thousands to millions of people in mandatory evacuation zones. I am not in one, nor are many others. While I am in the Tampa Bay area, I am tens of miles inland. Evacuees are staying in hotels and Airbnb rentals near me. If you want an example of what can happen when more people than required evacuate, look at Hurricane Rita in 2004, when hundreds of people died on highways trying to escape. I will let the people who need to leave evacuate, and I will stay home. If you have family in Florida and they say they are not evacuating, look at their location and the evacuation zones. Please do not contribute to the narrative that people are stupid for staying and hold that against them, as they are busy preparing for the hurricane and managing many variables in their decision to stay. Story 44. I just got back from helping my parents evacuate. The roads were congested but moving. Story 45. The evacuation went smoothly for us. We were prepared, so it was not too stressful. Story 46. I am in a non-evacuation zone in Pinellas County. Evacuation was intense Monday and Tuesday. The city provided free public transportation and partnered with a rideshare service for free rides to shelters. Had we not experienced damage from Helene, I do not think people would be taking this as seriously as they are now. There will be a lot of debris flying around, which adds another stress factor. Those of us in non-evacuation, non-flood zones are prepared to be without power for a while and have either boarded up or installed hurricane windows. Now, we just wait to see where it lands. Story 47. I am here in Orlando, Florida. I am a student at the University of Central Florida. They have shut down the campus since Tuesday. This is the first storm of the season. My family has boarded up the house. We have lived in the same house all my life. We did not have any flooding before or need to board up the house, but this time we did. We also took 2 of our cars to parking garages on campus, as the university is allowing overnight parking. Everyone in Florida and in the path of the storm, stay safe and be smart. Story 48. I have custody of many of my work patients, so I more or less had to stay here in Fort Myers. I am tarped and sandbagged on the first floor, a few miles from the coast in a sturdy building with my dog. I am not very worried about dying, but I am not looking forward to the next week or so. Story 49. My parents and sister are staying. They do not live in a mandatory evacuation zone, but my dad works at the Tampa Veterans Affairs Hospital, so he has to work through the storm. He is pretty sure it will be a rough week. They have done what they can to prepare the house, including having a generator, food, and water. Neither of my parents sounded too worried, as they stay prepared for hurricane season. I made sure they were taking all available precautions. My other immediate relatives, who live in Tampa or closer to the coast, have all evacuated or were able to stay out of town, thankfully. My brother and sister-in-law said they were on the road for about 10 hours going from North Tampa to Atlanta, which normally takes about 6 hours. They did not have problems getting gas along the way. In Savannah, Georgia, thankfully will be out of the path of Hurricane Milton. Hurricane Helene caused significant damage in my area, and many people in my city are still feeling the effects. Story 50. Tallahassee roads are a little chaotic. It is obvious there are more people in town than usual. I am not aware of any food or supply shortages. I am disappointed but not surprised they have not shut down the schools in our county, because it would have been wise to use them as shelters for evacuees from West and Central Florida. Story 51. Unincorporated West Palm Beach here, so no evacuation, but we did not dodge the bullet as much as expected. The tornadoes were shocking. I grew up in Tornado Alley, but most people in South Florida have never seen the kind of tornadoes that ripped through my area. We were only supposed to get tropical storm force winds this far south, not the massive tornadoes that touched down all around me, hours before landfall. I was fortunate, but I cannot say the same for people only about a mile away. 3 or 4 more touched down within a several-mile radius around me. There are already reports of multiple casualties, homes flattened, and vehicles blown around like they were toy cars. At least 2 huge tractor-trailers were blown over, blocking lanes of traffic. Felt like home, but not in a good way. Story 52. Currently in Daytona, which seems to have the second highest average gust or wind speed right now. I have a stray cat in the house that came up to the door to get away from the wind and rain. I am watching transformers blow from my window. The wind has an awful hiss to it and just sounds brutal. Story 53. My 82-year-old mother, as well as my sister and brother-in-law, live in Sarasota. Mom was able to evacuate on Monday to Indianapolis to stay with my 26-year-old child, but she had to pay over $600 on Spirit Airlines to leave. My sister and brother-in-law, along with their 4 cats, found a house to rent in Atlanta, so everyone is at least safe. Mom is very worried about losing everything she has. My father's ashes are in her condo. Story 54. I evacuated on Monday with my niece and nephew. It took 13 hours to travel from Tampa to northern Georgia. Story 55. Not many stations have fuel in Gainesville due to evacuation traffic. We constantly remind family and friends from out of state that there is little sense in evacuating from where we live. We would only get in the way of people who need to evacuate and would needlessly use resources that others can use. Story 56. I'm just south of the cyclone on the East Coast. It's going to be more of a tropical storm for us, and we should start experiencing adverse weather around 5 to 6 p.m. tonight. Although we are under a tornado warning right now, and a tornado did touch down south of me, it will get worse tonight. However, it is unlikely the hurricane will hit my area in any significant way. I have accordion shutters. If the National Hurricane Center shows the storm wobbling south, I will close them. Takes me a few minutes. I know some people who get hurricane updates before the news through their work. If they say to close the shutters, that is what I will do. I work remotely and have not driven anywhere the last couple of days. My house was prepared for the hurricane months in advance, so it is not much trouble. All I really have to do is make sure outside items are secured and the laundry is done. I have half a tank of gas. Many gas stations are tapped out or close to it, and there is no point in going anywhere. Story 57. I know many people in Middle Georgia, and apparently the traffic has been very heavy with many people staying there. I am glad that many people are evacuating. Things can be replaced. People cannot. Story 58. I know it does not mean much, but I send only good wishes and hope from the United Kingdom. I cannot imagine going through this. Story 59. For anyone trying to evacuate and anticipating stop traffic, change your route settings on Google Maps to turn on avoid highways. Turn off avoid tolls. I believe tolls are waived during evacuations anyway. Get off the highways and go through small towns that still have gas stations with gas. Anytime I evacuated from Florida, I only saw the bumper-to-bumper traffic if I passed over an interstate overpass and happened to drive by it. Story 60. Walmart is closed, but money-hungry AT&T was still open. My girlfriend had to go to work, and at the moment, she can't return home with her car because the area is flooded. Thanks, AT&T, because obviously they think that people want phones over supplies. Story 61. Claremont here. We did not evacuate. My boyfriend works for a cable company and is required to work tomorrow and Friday. We hurricane prepped my house and are currently hunkered down at his place. It is an apartment building and he is on the second floor. We figured it was the better option. Lots of snacks and lots of alcohol. We have the news on in one room and a movie on in the other. Stay safe, my Floridian friends. Story 62. Hello, Italian here. Just want to wish you all the best and hope that everything passes with as little damage as possible. Story 63. I live just across the line in Georgia. We were severely impacted by Hurricane Helene. Right now, the truck stop near my house is completely full of cars parked everywhere, with people resting inside, just enduring the situation. I worry for them. Hundreds of people are crowded there. Story 64. I hope I do not sound insensitive with this question, but after this latest 1-2 punch, is anyone reconsidering their long-term residence in parts of Florida? I do not see how the situation is going to improve with the way the world and climate are going. I was always a bit surprised there are still so many people in Florida to begin with. Story 65. An extended family member had a trip to Walt Disney World booked and left this past Saturday from the West Coast, knowing that there was to be a hurricane, but still went. They were able to find a flight home last night with 3 or 4 stops, traveling for over 30 hours to get back to the West Coast. Sorry, but not sorry, foolish decision. Thinking of all of you down there. Story 66. I live in Palm Harbor, Florida. I evacuated to Savannah on Monday with my husband, son, and dog. We had minimal damage from Hurricane Helene, but I cannot say the same for just a few blocks away where many people lost everything. My cousin lives in St. Petersburg, and I have been helping them clean up what was left of their home after the hurricane destroyed it. The neighborhood they are in, Riviera Bay, looks like a disaster zone. It is upsetting to see pictures and videos of the devastation, but to witness it firsthand is heartbreaking on a different level. Everyone is numb and in survival mode from Hurricane Helene. I know the most important thing is that my family and I are safe, but it really sucks to leave your home not knowing if you will have one to come back to or if we can even get back in time to mitigate more damage. Hotels, rental homes, and storage facilities are already full from Hurricane Helene. Yes, it is just stuff. But that stuff represents the life we have built as a family, and to think it may be gone is hard. My 11-year-old is amazing and has been very brave through all of this, so we are trying to hold it together. Trying is the operative word. Story 67. North Tampa. My family and pets did not evacuate until Wednesday morning. We planned to shelter in place but had a last-minute change of heart. The traffic was okay, and my family, including pets, are at a relative's house a little more than an hour further north. It is definitely still stormy here, but the situation so far is okay. Story 68. Instead of replying to everyone, I am just going to say this and I hope people see it. My heart is with you. I know it does not mean much. I do not have anything that can help you in this situation. I am in the Midwest. I do not have money to send. I do not have anything really except to know that my heart is with you and all of Florida. We make jokes about Florida, but no one wants people to be hurt or to die. Hang in there. Be strong. Know that there are many of us out here hoping you will be okay. Sending love, prayers, and everything we have, and we will be here for you after the storm passes. Good luck and love to everyone. Stay as safe as you possibly can. Story 69. My dad was in evacuation zone Alpha. His house is standing but was damaged by Hurricane Helene. I have not had direct contact with him since Sunday. His partner, who was able to leave the state, confirmed that he is still in Florida. There is no service, and the last update she received was an email from him this morning sent via a hotspot. He said he was going to try to find a hotel in Cape Coral. I am not sure if he is with anyone. I do not think there are any hotels left. From far away, I am scared. Story 70. From Pinellas and evacuated to northern Georgia. What should have been a 9-hour drive took 22 hours. It was absolute hell. But now I am enjoying the cooler weather and the beautiful landscapes. Story 71. My family went to Jacksonville, and I am staying with my partner in Atlanta. There is a very real feeling on both sides of my family that no one wants to think about. What do we do if we come back and there is nothing to come home to? Personally, I still have not found an answer. My home is where I go to work. I work paycheck to paycheck. I am also worried about not getting paid for the days I have to take off. It is definitely an odd time. Story 72. Tampa Oldsmar checking in. I live in Zone Alpha, so I evacuated Monday afternoon to another part of Florida, more inland. Traffic was horrible. It took twice as long to reach my destination, and gas stations were already out of fuel. I was finally able to fill up my tank this morning just in case. I am moving to Oregon in 2 months and tried to buy a ticket on Sunday to go there for a bit. But the price increased tenfold, so I decided to stay. My flight would have been canceled anyway, so I am glad I did not go. Story 73. St. Petersburg checking in. Evacuated to my parents in Orlando. So far, it is just kind of rainy with a few tornado warnings. I am tipsy now, which is neat. Story 74. My city was half engulfed in water, and I had to evacuate to somewhere safer in May here in the south of Brazil. My advice: run however you can and do not look back. It is hard to leave your things behind, but it is better to have the memory than to become the memory. I am wishing you all the best. Story 75. After the majority is gone, I can confidently say that was the scariest night of my entire life. 5 hours of hurricane-force wind gusts are not ideal. Story 76. Living on the second floor of an apartment outside the evacuation zones. Hunkering down and parking away from trees. Have about 8 gallons of drinking water, 1 5-gallon jug, and 3 1-gallon containers. Going to fill my tub tonight for washing and flushing in case the main water line is cut. Have non-perishable food, power banks, inexpensive lanterns and batteries, candles, and a small battery backup. My neighbor is very kind. If she evacuates, she will let us borrow her apartment keys and says we can use whatever is in her pantry. Such a warm soul. Story 77. I do not live there anymore, but my whole family still does. It is not great, but it seems like everyone was able to get somewhere safer. We will just have to wait and see what they go back to. Story 78. I am on the other side with no evacuation orders or anything. My small town has been ruined by multiple tornadoes like I have never seen before. Story 79. I do not know, but it sounds pretty windy outside, and the water in the toilet bowl was sloshing around when I came into the bathroom. Power has flickered and went out for a second a minute ago, but I still have lights on. I am in Central Florida between Tampa and Orlando. Story 80. New to Florida. Have family here who help a lot. Doing what we can. Trying to stay calm. Story 81. My family and I left at 2 a.m. on Tuesday to go to North Georgia. The 8.5-hour trip took 13 hours. It would not have been so bad. But when we left, my spouse and I were just 8 hours off a plane from Alaska. Story 82. My family is in Tampa, and they are not evacuating. This West Coaster is stressing out. Story 83. You can listen to radio stations all over the affected area. I am listening to this one in Sarasota. Story 84. Currently outside of Tampa without power, just scrolling Reddit and YouTube, waiting for the storm to pass, and hoping the worst is only the power outage. Story 85. As of Wednesday morning, October 9th, everything is under control. I am in charge here at the keyboard. Story 86. I am in my bedroom with a boarded window and a tarp, browsing Reddit while hunched over my PC. Story 87. My aunt, uncle, and nephew are staying in Cape Coral. I don't understand. Their house was destroyed by Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Idalia. Story 88. We're from Central Florida, a little south of Orlando. We are not in the immediate evacuation zone, but we are in a high-risk area for flooding, and we are expected to be directly impacted by Milton. My mother has a medical condition, and in case of emergencies, we always need access to a hospital. Considering how things usually go after hurricanes, we did not want to risk losing power or ending up in an overcrowded hospital. Therefore, we left as soon as we could and headed to Georgia on Monday night. We managed to get a one-day reservation at an overpriced hotel, but every day after had tripled in price, and all the reasonably priced hotels were fully booked for the rest of the week. The closest places with available hotels were either Atlanta or South Carolina, and South Carolina was closer, so we went there on Tuesday. Story 89. Lifelong Floridian here who lives in Central Florida, a few miles from the mouse. Evacuation is evacuation. Millions going in the same direction. There are no real shortages, just runs on some supplies. All places have increased restocking and are doing a great job. As others have said many times, every area is different and faces different problems. With that said, many codes have been adjusted to best prepare. My area will face 60 miles per hour winds and we may see a few downed trees. All roofs are built to withstand this fairly easily. We do have dozens of mobile home communities, and they are under evacuation orders. Many of us here are hosting local friends from trailers and all West Coast friends and family. It makes for a good time. Probably 25% own a generator. If you don't, there are a few people you know who do. You are playing the odds on who will or won't lose power. You lose power in a variety of ways. 1. Florida power and light disconnects for a bigger reason. 2. Lightning. 3. Ground is already saturated. Standing water causes poles to eventually fall. 4. Dead trees fall on power lines. In this area, a good number will lose power, but 90% are on city water, so water is still available, just cold. Enough people have generators to run a line for the refrigerator and maybe a couple of fans. The area is flooded with linemen and will be back to normal within a week. Life will be like it never happened come November. The coast is getting hit with 150 miles per hour winds and 15-foot plus storm surge. There is nothing you can do to prepare. They will be struggling for a while, especially after Helene. It is part of living in Florida on the coast. Story 90. Just checking in on some people I cannot reach directly. How are things in Sarasota? Specifically a little bit southeast, near North Point? Story 91. I am southwest of Orlando, well inland in Polk County. We have wind gusts and rain. I am watching live coverage, and it says by the time it reaches my area, it will only be a Category 1 hurricane. We still have electricity, internet, and water. Story 92. How did people with electric vehicles fare in the evacuation? Did you have enough range? How were the charging stations? Story 93. Here is a question for people living in areas likely to be affected by these events. Why is everyone rushing to buy water? It makes sense to keep some large water containers at home and fill them up if it looks like you might lose your supply. You can get large containers that fold in a concertina style so they do not take much space to store. I use one for camping. Story 94. I really hope they are not wasting their battery on Reddit. Story 95. I have a friend who lives inland near Tampa. Wind is the biggest concern. He said traffic is too bad and fuel is too scarce for him to evacuate. Instead, he did his best to prepare his property and will be taking his family to a storm shelter nearby. Other hurricanes have not caused much trouble for him, but obviously this one is head-on, so I am worried. Story 96. All my family that lives there cannot leave, so they are going to tough it out. I am more worried about my mother since she has cancer and is not strong. I told her if it gets really bad, to go to the bathroom or her closet with her dog and wait it out. Story 97. I am currently in Pinellas County, right in the crosshairs. All the gas stations were dry, and highways were gridlocked well before I could move north. So I have little choice now but to hunker down and brace for impact. Story 98. It's the closest it has ever been. Evacuation has been discussed, but it is not mandatory for us. Honestly, I kind of wish we would evacuate just to be careful, but we have about 8 pets. At my school, for some reason, you get looks or disapproving noises if you say that you are evacuating. I do not know why. Teenagers are strange. I hope it will not be as strong when it reaches us. I hope others can recover quickly and safely, and I hope it will not be that bad. All I can do is hope. Stay safe, everyone. Story 99. I'm in Ocala, north of Orlando and out of the main path of the storm, but still getting lots of rain, strong winds, and related weather. Only mandatory evacuation orders are for recreational vehicles, mobile homes, and modular homes. Everyone else is under shelter in place. Traffic northbound on Interstate 75 was barely moving when I took my girlfriend to work 2 nights ago at midnight. She works 3rd shift. No gasoline was available Monday or Tuesday anywhere in Ocala, but it seems to be available now. Hotels are booked with people from the Tampa area, and many people are being rude. There is a lot of water hoarding. Walmart stores here looked like the pictures seen online. When I went hoping to catch a restock, I saw multiple people with more than 4 40-packs of water. Story 100. My brother lives in Orlando, and he flew out here to California yesterday. He already had plans to come out long before any talk of Milton, so his flight was already secured. He said the airport shut down 4 hours after he departed. I am glad and thankful he will not be there when it hits. He put his bed on cinder blocks before leaving in case of flooding. He lives on a lake, and the house has flooded before. I am glad he is here and safe, but really hoping he does not have to go back to the disaster area. Story 101. What do they do with the animals at zoos and sanctuaries? Story 102. God. Reddit is such a breath of fresh air after reading comments on Instagram threads. Please be safe, everyone. Story 103. Not great, Bob. I am happy I evacuated early, but judging by my damage from Hurricane Helene and the projected storm surge, I am set to lose my house and basically everything. Story 104. I left North Orlando this morning at about 9 a.m. and reached the Georgia border at about 11:30 a.m. I maintained a consistent speed the whole way, driving through rain until just outside Jacksonville. Procrastination paid off this time. Story 105. I have no idea why anyone would want to try to brace for the absolute monster Milton has become. You would not try to brace against a dump truck going 80 miles per hour towards your car, would you? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.